Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of my new web series entitled Table for One, where we cook and explore life in the single lane. In today's episode, we will be cooking pan-seared salmon with a side of mushroom rice and roasted potatoes. Let's get started. Well, so like I said earlier, one of the side dishes we're having today is our potatoes. We have some Parisian potatoes here. Now you can get them just the regular golden variety. I chose to get the pack with some red and purple just to give it a little bit more depth and color. So along with the potatoes, as I mentioned, we're gonna do a rice and a protein. Now when I cook, I like to have a nice balanced variety of sides and mains, so it doesn't get too heavy or too light, and it's just, balanced. So we're gonna slice these. I like to slice them lengthwise so they have more surface area. So once we get the spices going here, which I have some, a mix here of dill, dried onions, and just some other seasoned salt, just to get them nice and flavorful. So I'm gonna put my bowl here just so I can toss the potatoes in there once they're chopped. And so these are gonna go in the oven for probably about 20 to 25 minutes on 425, just to make sure they get a nice crisp on them. It's also good if you have time to rotate them midway to make sure all of them are getting nice and toasty.
And what kind of potatoes are you using? Just these special potatoes or what?
Yeah, so these are just Parisian potatoes.
Parisian?
Yeah. And so then we're gonna get the spices going here. Just spread that on top.
Yeah.
Here we have about 1/3 of a cup of olive oil. Now you could use butter, you could use any oil other that you would like. You don't have to use it all, just enough so where we can mix it up a bit and make sure it's all coated in the spices and the oil. That just takes a couple seconds. Then we're gonna pan over here and get this ready here. Dump them in. Make sure we have lots of space because as the potatoes cook.
How many is this going to feed?
So, well, like I said earlier, this is about life in the single lane. So this is really...
It's a lot for a single.
Well, I know, but just wait. So this can turn into a lunch, maybe the next day. You can invite a couple friends over. But the whole idea of this show is to kind of cater to single people who like to cook, but also don't like to waste food. So I think this is a healthy portion for about maybe 3, possibly 4 servings. So once that's all done, want to spread them out, and then we'll get them in the oven. Okay, so now that we have the potatoes in the oven here, we have our vegetable broth, which we're waiting to come to a firm boil here. Now, while we wait, I'll kind of go into the idea for this particular series. I've been single for almost 2 years now, and I found that very often cooking shows and lifestyle shows always tend to leave us single people out of the mix. So I thought I would go ahead and try to tackle that group. You are still able to cook well and artfully. So as you can see, our broth has gotten to a boil. So we'll go ahead and grab our rice here. Now what I have here is a mix of wild rice and long grain rice. This is 1 cup of rice with about 1/4 cup of dried chopped up mushrooms, just to get a little bit more of that umami flavor in the rice. So we're just gonna pour that in there. Grab a spoon here, mix it up to make sure it's all evenly coated. And then we're gonna let that come to a boil quickly. Actually, before that, we'll add some of these cannelle spices. In this particular mix, we have, this is called the Stockholm lemon and dill, which, as it says in the name, has lemon and dill in it. which I think will be a nice complement with the fish. So I got a teaspoon here, and we're just gonna add that to the mix. So now that that's done, we're gonna grab the lid, which is right here, lower it to a gentle simmer, which will go on for about 20 to 25 minutes. So now while that's going, we're gonna make some space here for the showstopper of the day, which will be our salmon. So now, like I said, I live alone, so you might think off the get-go this is a lot of salmon for one person. So this is about 0.6 of a kilogram, and it costed about $15. So if you could get even 3 meals out of it, that comes to about, what, $5 a plate. Because a lot of the times I think single people tend to not cook well because they're afraid of being cost effective. So as you can tell, here we have our salmon, which is quite a big piece. Like I said, this is about 0.6 of a kilogram, so I bet we could get about 4 portions out of this. Now I will show you that the fishmonger was actually able to cut off the skin from the bottom, which makes it much, much easier to cut it up when you want to get separate portions there. So you just want to go in and get a nice clean cut there. So now the beautiful thing about fish is that it's so versatile as far as the different flavor profiles that you can play with.
Is this Atlantic salmon?
So this is Atlantic salmon. Now, actually recently there was a documentary about the salmon industry on how it's really not the most healthy thing for the fish or people. But I will say that when you compare fish to really any other meat, it's still far more healthy. So I think we're just fine cooking salmon today. Also, so to talk about the spices, we're gonna go for a spicy mix of, let me just pull and grab that here. We have a mix here of garlic powder, chili powder, paprika, black pepper, and seasoned salt. So we're just gonna evenly distribute that on all the little fillets there. Make sure we get every little bit. Okay, so now it's ready to go in the pan. So here we have the potatoes. This is about halfway through. So you can see they're getting a little bit crispy. It's actually a good idea to maybe mix it a bit.
Turn them around a bit, yeah?
Yeah, make sure everything gets toasty.
All surfaces are covered.
Yep.
When you stick a fork in them to test, how do you know if they're done?
Well, they'll start to get crispy around the edges,
Okay.
and that'll be the sure sign that they're done. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and heat up the pan here. So when cooking something like a meat stovetop, it's best to get the pan as hot as possible. So when you put the meat in it, you get a nice crust around the edge. So we're going to heat this up for a couple minutes. A good way to be able to tell when the pan is ready is when the oil starts to smoke just a little bit. That means that the temperature is high enough to get a nice sear going. Okay, so here we have the rice cooking away. As you can tell, the bubbles are going and the water is evaporating, making sure all the broth gets inside the rice, and we have plenty of flavor like everything else we're going to make today.
Be a delight.
Yes, it's going to be great. Just happened to have a couple friends over today, so even though I did say this is about the single life, sometimes the single life does involve other people, believe it or not. Well, I wanted the skin on because when it hits the pan, the fish isn't burned itself. It's just like the underside, like the scales that take the brunt of the heat. So in this case, I don't have that, so I have to be careful not to overcook it. All right, so we have the salmon cooking here. We'll give it probably another minute or two to make sure there's a nice crust on the bottom. Once that's done, we have a nice juicy lemon and some fresh local honey that we're going to add to the pan to give it that last pop of flavor. All right, so we just gave them a flip. Again, we'll let them cook for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll move on to the final stage, which, like I said, is the lemon and the honey. All right, so these are just about done. With my tongs here, we're gonna go ahead and flip these over. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, hello.
Look at that nice
Yeah.
blackened on top.
Oh my gosh. I'm delighted.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Got to make sure you got the crust on there. Maybe lower the heat a bit.
Bring it down.
Okay, and now we're going to move on to the final step. We're going to go ahead and just use half a lemon here. Cut it in half. First, we're going to add a little bit of butter to get it a little bit of a nutty flavor. And now we're going to hit it with some fresh lemon. Get it nice and full in there.
Yeah.
So I use about half a lemon. I think that's more than enough to get the flavor going. So once the lemon's in, we're gonna go over it with just a bit of honey, not too much, just to get it a little sweet. It's gonna mix with the nuttiness of the butter and the tartness of the lemon and get us a nice, well-balanced flavor. Yeah, so obviously right now it's not ideal to have people over during COVID, but once that's done, that filet, which again was $15, divided between 3 people, it's only about $5 a portion, which makes it affordable for either multiple servings for yourself or to serve a small party of about maybe 3 to 4 people. So as this is going, we're gonna go ahead and gather the liquid here up and just spoon it over the fish just to make sure it's nice and incorporated here. Well, everything's finally finished up. We got the salmon resting after being cooked for a bit. We have the rice finished, and we're gonna go ahead and right now take our potatoes out of the oven. See how they turned out. Oh yeah, I got nice little crust around the edges there. So go ahead and place that there. All right, so we got our dinner plate here. We'll go ahead and start off with the rice. So take that top off. Get a nice healthy portion there. Start there. Grab one of our lovely fillets here. And then we'll move on to our potatoes.
Oh my gosh, they look delicious.
And there we go.
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a bite out of this. We'll start off with the potatoes. Oh, look how soft they are. Totally pierceable with the fork here. And here we have it, guys. We have our wonderful mushroom rice with our dill roasted potatoes and our blackened salmon. Let's take a bite of that salmon and see how it turned out. Perfect. And that's table for one. Join us next time where we tackle mac and cheese.